Live.
Hello and welcome to Micro Live. Tonight, computer games. We look at some of the alternatives to zapping those space invaders.
And word processors, what do they really offer to the absolute beginner?
From the city, Stephen Arkle reports on how stockbrokers have been struggling with their newfound computer power.
And we tell the sad story of the Wing Sail, a computer-controlled sail which has steered its inventor into troubled waters.
When you first look at game software, the impression you get is that every computer game is excitingly different. The packaging is great, it's glossy and grabby. Even the opening screens can look pretty inspiring. But when the game finally appears, you're usually hit by a sinking feeling of having seen it all before. That's because most games are developed from just a few classic themes. There's monster games like this one, where you run around bumping off critters or swallowing giant cherries. And there's the Space Invader theme, where you shoot at moving fleets of hostile aliens. Fairly boring. And then there's the more recent sports games. Well, sports games to me are perhaps the most appalling use of computers. Here it is, this is a decathlon. Well, doing a decathlon on a Commodore by wagging a joystick like this is really no substitute for going out and getting a spot of fresh air. Well, these sort of games might seem a bit of fun, but it's surprising how quickly even the most dedicated games addict gets bored with them.
Many people find the answer in adventure games. They have a vast following and can present a real mental challenge. An adventure game puts you into a whole new world. It sets you a series of problems which you've got to solve in order to complete some quest. This one is called The Pawn. It's got some very neat graphics, as you see, and it can also cope with some rather complicated instructions. For example, here I told it, go north, take off wristband and wait. Well, it's behaved as if it understood every word of it. We showed a version of this on the Atari ST last series, but there are now versions for the Amiga and even for the humble Commodore 64. Well, a good adventure game would keep you busy for days on end, be warned. You'd probably need to draw a map of the locations, because the geography, not to mention the strategy, can get pretty mind-boggling. Unfortunately, though, there are also some really naff adventure games around. You'd have more fun doing your tax returns. So, before you buy, read the reviews, or better still, ask an addict. The computer games that exercise the mind are often derived from what were originally board games. For example, an inexpensive bit of software can now be a mean opponent at chess. Or, if you're a Scrabble freak, you can now keep in trim on your own. Believe it or not, this Spectrum version has actually got a vocabulary of 11,000 words. 11,000! That's about the same as the average adult. Despite that, when I put in the word stalk earlier this afternoon, it didn't understand what I meant. Queried it. Oh well. The machine will play the parts of several opponents, if you like. Well, up here we've got Mac and Leslie. They're not really playing this. I'm playing against the computer. And it has all the traditional features. For example, you can swap letters if you like, or you can juggle them about like this. It's quite nice. And there are blanks and so on. Now let's enter a word. What can we have? There's an X. I've got one, I think. I don't know if I'm allowed this on television before 9 o'clock, but what about S? EX. Can I get away with that? It accepts it. It would score 18. Oh, yes, I'll definitely have that. Yes, please. Right. Word is accepted. Fair enough. Okay. Well, if that doesn't excite you, you can always leave it playing on its own while you pop down the pub. And, of course, now there's Trivial Pursuit. It's been taken to new heights with new questions. Well, new trivial questions, that is. They now include graphics and sound, but you are expected to be honest. Well, let's press this button and off we go. See what we get. It's going to be a science question. Well, that might be a help. What are hardened mollusk secretions? Oh, my giddy aunt. I've no idea, but OK, supposing I said they're a form of tea bag. I don't know. Pearls, did you get it right? Yes, I say, of course I did. And I win the point. Well, of course, it's really supposed to be played in a group. But I can't help thinking that this version would appeal to computer freaks rather more than Trivial Pursuit fanatics. Well, so much for board games. What about a creative arcade game? Is there such a thing? Yes, there is. This pinball construction set lets you design your own pinball machine. And you can even change things. Well, first of all, you play it like a conventional pinball, if you remember these things. Press the button and you score it, the things bounce around, and you can steer it around with the paddles. But if you get fed up with that one, you can change things. I'll move on to an options screen here. Now, what should we have? We'll move one of these items over. Pop that about there, I think, and perhaps one of these wedge shapes. Pick it up, put it over there. Right, let's try that. Oh, but first, I think I'll change some of the laws of nature. We'll move on to that which is supposed to represent the globe, the real world, and we can change, well, gravity, if we like. Make it a bit stronger. Oh no, let's make it a bit lighter, see what happens. And elasticity, that's the bounce of the ball, so we'll change that a bit. Pull that down here. Right, quit that. Back into play mode, which is that icon there. There it is. Now let's try that. Oh, you see, well, gravity really has reduced there. I'm playing this on the moon or something. Let's see if I can catch that ball next time it comes down. Ah, got it. Great stuff. And that'll bounce around, should score quite well. So, even the old Home Micro can run good... Oh, shut up, will you? That's enough. Fine, thanks. Even the old Home Micro can run good games, but the newer machines, which have got more memory, better graphics, and faster processing, can handle even smarter games. Have a look at this one, Marble Madness on the Amiga. Now, basically, this is a very simple game. All I've got to do is steer this marble around, up and down these ramps and over these surfaces here. So there's nothing special about that, but what does make this game special is these graphics. It takes a bit of a steady hand, but... got it there. Not too difficult, but the graphics are terrific, real arcade quality. So, if you've never played a computer game, don't dismiss them. There are games for all mentalities. It's just that the good games are hidden behind a mass of crude shoot-'em-ups.
The age of sail lasted over 1,000 years. The wind costs nothing, and with sails properly set, a ship is capable of pulling the heaviest loads through the roughest seas. For 20 years, John Walker has relentlessly pursued the dream of restoring sails to cargo ships. Sails unlike any seen before. Finally, in June 1986, John fitted a ship with his first wing sail, a sail operated not by man, but by a computer. The ship, the Ashington, is diesel-powered. The intention is that the wing sail will cut her fuel consumption.
Well, it's an experimental installation, but we're hoping for 10%, and a full installation with another wing sail on the forward end should produce over 20%.
Seen from above, the wing sail is like 3 aircraft wings side-on, which can be rotated by small movements of a tail fin, rather like a weathercock. The 3 wing sections can be curved or feathered to give them the characteristics of a sail and thrust the ship forward. The critical factors are the rotation and feathering of the wing sails. These are decided by computer. The computer is housed in this box. From here, it can operate the sails by a system of hydraulic levers, which are connected back to the pumps in the computer housing. The computer knows from a vane and an anemometer on the wing sail both the wind angle and the wind speed. It also knows the angle of rotation of the wing sail from a sensor in the swiveling base. Walker used this model to convince skeptics that the wing sail would work. He emphasized its unique features, particularly the ability of the wings to curve either way to take advantage of the wind.
And we've got the wind at the moment coming in from the side of the ship. And when the flaps are deflected like that, the wind is deflected so and produces a thrust in that direction. It's a completely automatic system, so nearly as we can make it. Obviously, the captain has to decide whether or not he wants the thing working at all, and he also is the only person who could decide whether he wants a head thrust or a stern thrust. But anything more than that, the computer does completely by itself.
This circuit board contains the memory chip, called an EEPROM, which holds the program that controls the wing sail. The program was written by Frank Dale in a language called Forth. Frank is a bit of a Forth fanatic.
Forth is a language designed by a control engineer to facilitate the programming of control systems, and it has a whole range of unique features that belong only to Forth. It's like no other language. Lots of disparagers call it a write-only language because you can't, they claim that once written, you can't ever read it again, and you know, a month later you don't know what you've written. But the beauty of Forth, it's extremely powerful, it's extremely compact. On this board, I've got a Forth interpreter, the Forth system, in a chip on there. I've got Forth on this system. I can write the program on these 3.5-inch discs, the source code. I can send it from this machine down the line to this machine, where this interpreter compiles it into this chunk of memory. So the actual program that runs sits in this little square block, and there's the finished job. It goes onto the ship.
If the ingenuity of the technologists were all that were needed to get the wing sail onto a ship, the wing sail would have sailed long ago. As it is, its main obstacle has always been economics, starting with the difficulty of getting investors to back an unconventional project.
The trouble with innovative high technologies as far as city institutions are concerned is that there are no analysts, there's no form book, there's nothing to guide them, and so they feel terribly exposed. And so normally they tend to decide not to invest. The private investor who has brought us fundamentally as far as we've got has an entirely different attitude. He or she, for an astonishing number of ladies among our shareholder list, say this is something which seems to be sensible, seems to be important, it ought to be able to proceed, and therefore I'm going to put some money into it.
But as the day of the launch approached, no investor could ignore the crucial fact that John's factory had no more firm orders and was lying idle. The only sign of activity was the men from Lloyd's Register of Shipping fitting a recorder into Wingsail's computer to see if the sea trials would vindicate John's claims. And as John Walker waited for the maiden voyage of the Wingsail, one thing was moving decisively against him. The price of oil was falling dramatically. Wingsail set sail on the 12th of June 1986. John and his wife watched as it moved into Southampton water on its way to trials in the Irish Sea.
I can't remember the last time I cried.
Perfect, eh?
Over the next month, the data recorders were to show that Wingsail did indeed save about 10% of the Ashington's fuel consumption. Another important benefit also became apparent. Wingsail's ability to exert thrust in the right direction at the right time meant that it could be used instead of expensive tugs when docking. But in the end, the price of oil fell so far and so fast that no other shipowner considered the fuel saving offered by the Wingsail worth paying for. John received no more orders, and 2 months after these pictures were taken, his company failed. Well, the Wingsail on the Ashington is still performing well and came through an encounter with Hurricane Charlie in the Bay of Biscay completely unscathed. Well, although John Walker had to lay off most of his staff in August, he's managed to start another venture, developing a yacht design based on the principles of the Windsail. And we wish him good luck.